From CBS 47 and Fox 30, it's time for This Week in the 904.
Welcome to This Week in the 904. I'm your host, Emily Turner. This is a community affairs show, and it will focus on politics, public policy, and the issues that affect our local communities. Joining us today is Jacksonville Mayor Donna Deegan. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
You're right in the middle of a whole process with community meetings on the budget.
Yeah.
What have you heard so far from the community?
Well, it's a lot of the stuff that we always hear. I think we've tried to frame these community meetings in different ways. The first set we had was really about just come all, throw anything at us that you feel like we're not hearing or we're not doing well. A second was around the stadium, and then these are specifically focused on the budget. So we've asked people, give us things you would like for us to focus on in the budget. So you're hearing a lot of talk about sidewalks and about septic tanks and about street lights and those things that you would imagine in a local city government that people care about. Potholes, people really are concerned about that. And I'd say in addition to that, we're still hearing the discussions about affordable housing and homelessness and issues like that. But primarily it's, hey, my street has a big pothole, or hey, I was supposed to get a sidewalk, how much longer? That sort of thing has really been, not things you might necessarily consider sexy topics, but really important to people, and that's why we're there.
Public works, that's one of the important parts of
local government. That's it. Yeah.
Were there any surprises, that anything that came up that you were like, I guess I didn't think about that, or I didn't realize this was a priority?
No, I can't honestly say there have been surprises, but I do think it is very, very helpful to go into neighborhoods and to hear what's on people's minds in terms of their own circumstances. We live in sort of a bubble at City Hall unless we get out and talk to people, where we think a lot of the things that we do are really important to people. And at the end of the day, what you learn when you go into a town hall meeting like this is people want their things done. They want to make sure their kids can walk to school safely. They want to make sure that people aren't speeding down their streets 24/7. They want to make sure that they have the amenities, the infrastructure that helps them to have quality lives. And that's really what you learn.
So as you're entering this budget process and you're kind of building your next budget, how much of what you hear in these meetings gets into that, and what are the priorities? I know it's early in this process, but what are the priorities you see moving forward?
Well, they're really the same priorities. We want to make sure that we're increasing the quality of life for everybody in Jacksonville. But what I said when I came in, and I still believe this to be true, is that we have some neighborhoods that have been neglected for longer than others. So we're taking those CIP projects, those capital improvement plan projects, in districts 1, 7, 8, 9, 10, and we're moving them to the top of the list because they've been left behind for so long. They would get to the top of the list and they get moved back to the bottom of the list. So a lot of those areas you really have, the septic tanks that are really in tough shape. You have the sidewalks that are crumbling. You have the street lights that aren't working or non-existent. Those are the types of things we're focused on when it comes to budget items for infrastructure. And infrastructure is still number one. I got to say, it's still number one. Downtown development, really, really important because I believe it will give us the capital to invest in the rest of the city, but also because we want to have a thriving downtown to attract young people and business. So health of our community, another thing that we'll continue to focus on. People really seem to appreciate that. We've been able to increase the number of uninsured, or decrease the number of uninsured people by 34%. And we've also created a telehealth program that has allowed us to save millions, or more than $1 million so far in just its first several weeks, in sending people to the emergency room, and connect them to doctors. So a lot of what we look forward to is what can create a better quality of life for everybody in our city, and how do we manage this astronomical growth that we're seeing in a way that is sustainable for our city and won't hurt our quality of life.
And there's still one opportunity for folks who are interested, the 27th. Yes. They can come and talk to you.
Arlington.
Yes, and I want to get to the downtown development piece, but before we get there,
sure.
When it comes to the budget, last year, from the council members who have come on the show previously, said it was a budget battle like they've never seen before. From your perspective, what was that like? Because there are, an overwhelming number of Republicans on council who really came after dollars and cents.
Yeah, well, they did at the time of the budget, but then they went back after the budget process was over and put a bunch of their priorities out of reserves and things that they wanted to do. So I think a lot of that, I understand fiscal responsibility. I think we have been very fiscally responsible with what we've done with our lean program, what we've tried to do in terms of reducing our permitting time, all those things we've done to try to make government more efficient. But to simply say you can't spend any money out of reserves and then to go back and take money out of reserves for garbage, or take money out of reserves for a building that perhaps we already have a solution for. I don't understand that way of thinking. And so it leads me to believe that a lot of that is just political stuff. And you know what? That's to be expected in this job, right? But at the end of the day, we presented a balanced budget. We will always present a balanced budget. And I'll ask to spend money out of reserves when I think it's necessary. But beyond that, we have a very, very healthy reserve, and we have a healthy budget right now.
Does what happened last year change the way you approach this year in any way?
Look, I will always present a budget that I think is fiscally responsible while also making sure that we are covering the needs for our community. That's really important. For instance, when we took a look at the entire budget, while we want to make sure that we're spending fiscally responsibly, we also looked at our permitting process and we said, gosh, we have decimated that department to where we're not getting permits out of here. We had to increase the number of people in permitting. But what happened when we did that and we revamped the system, now our permits are coming out in 40 days instead of 100. So that is efficiency in my mind, even though you're spending a little more money to see what I'm saying? Because time is money for our business owners. But you look at different scenarios and you say, we can cut here, we need to build here. It just comes down to what makes the most sense in terms of the dollars that we have. What are our priorities? And as I've said many times, your budget is a value statement.
One of the concerns that was raised in the last year's budget cycle was we've got all this extra tax money when everybody moved here, and that's going to taper off, so we're not going to get as much. And there's these expectations that in some cases are painted as dire straits. From your perspective, what is our financial runway, and what does it look like?
Listen, we asked everybody last year, and this is ongoing, by the way, when we implemented our lean program, which is a program that's been very effective in business. We challenged every one of our departments and said, we need you to come in and show us. We're not saying we're asking you to do this, but we want to see what you would do if we asked you to cut 10% from your budgets, just to see what that would look like. And so it causes everybody to have to look at what they're doing and how could they be more efficient. So those are the types of things we're going to continue to do. But in terms of the money that we're bringing in, what we've seen is a huge hit from our commercial real estate, because a lot of those buildings got decimated during COVID. And you're still continuing to see that happen as people are still home, they're not working, they're working remotely still, they're not in those big buildings. And so we're getting a lot of requests to reevaluate that property. And when those values come in lower, we get less money. That's what's happening, Emily. So that will continue to happen for a little while. So yeah, we're going to have to create priorities, and we're going to have to stick to those priorities. Whether they will be the same as the priorities for across the hall, I suspect we'll do what we always do and come to some sort of a collaboration, which has allowed us to get a lot done in the last 18 months.
And it makes my job in the fall really fun.
Well, I'm glad that's fun for you. For me, not so much, but it's okay. Yeah.
Well, coming up just after the break, stick around because we're going to talk about downtown development and so much more.
From CBS 47 and Fox 30, you're watching This Week in the 904.
Welcome back to This Week in the 904. I'm your host, Emily Turner. Joining us this week is Mayor Donna Deegan, and we've talked budget already, but one of the things that's going to be a part of your budget and also is a big priority for you is downtown development.
Yes, absolutely.
There have been some wins, some losses over the years. Where do you feel like we stand?
Well, you're being very gracious, I think. I think, one of the reasons that I ran for office was because I got really, really tired as a lifelong Jacksonville resident of watching one step forward and two steps back. You see downtown's going to go. People moved here 20 years ago. What happened? So our you've heard me say many times I'm not patient, and I because I've seen what happens when things sit. They fall apart. When you debate something to death over and over and over again to the point where you can't recognize it anymore, things fall apart. So we were able to move that stadium program through, that stadium lease through, because we set a deadline, we stuck to the deadline, and we said we're going to move it. And had we not done that, imagine that, Emily, we would have gone through that whole not very great season for the Jaguars, and the really tough budget debate. I don't know if we would have gotten that stadium lease done. And that's true for so many things. So with downtown development, what I want to do is move things forward quickly. And you've seen that. We've got cranes in the air everywhere over there. You've got that Pearl Square district that's going up. Riverfront Plaza is going to be, first phase is going to be done later this year, which is going to be absolutely world-class and fabulous. If we're able to move this land swap through, and I'm hopeful that once we present the numbers to council and they see that it really is an even swap, I don't know why we would spend millions of dollars there if we don't need to. And I have not really, frankly, heard a good argument for why we wouldn't do that, aside from that it was my idea. So we'll see how that goes. But at the end of the day, we know we want that development pad to match what the Perkins and Will plan did. And we know that we want that park done in phase 1 and phase 2 and move on down the line and keep going with those riverfront parks because we have them funded. So downtown development, huge priority because we want that downtown to go for so many reasons: business, attracting young people, all those things. UF campus, all those things are going to create just tremendous synergy for us downtown. But at the end of the day, it will also provide us with the revenue to then invest in the rest of the city without raising people's taxes, which is what we don't want to do. You have a quality of life here that people love for a variety of reasons, the river, the ocean, but also we have low taxes and we'd like to keep it that way. But you have to find a way to fund things, and downtown's a great way to do that.
What's the lag time on that? I mean, because so many of these things aren't even built yet, or they're still, in the early stages.
Yeah, well, but if you look at some of the, we created a new website called idigjacks.com where people can actually go in and see in real time what's happening with every one of these. But as I said, phase 1 of Riverfront Plaza done this year. The Pearl Square district, I think the first phase of that is done next year. That's tons of homes and entertainment and just massive development downtown. So you have a lot of those things that are moving forward and are going to be done in the next year or two. I think that's pretty quick. But some will take several years to build out. UF campus, probably won't see all of that built out for 10 years.
Well, they're supposed to start classes this fall,
yes,
right?
They'll start classes this fall, I believe, in the Interline building. We just need to come to an agreement on how we're going to do that, right? Whether it's the land swap or not, we need to come to an agreement, and they'll start classes in there because that's already appropriate for their use. And then when they start the building process of the parcels they're going to build on first, that will create in 26, 27, and beyond, where they'll hold additional classes. But they're moving pretty quickly in that plan, and I love to see it.
I think one of the criticisms I've heard on my show from people about that deal is the timing of that. That, it suddenly happens that this building was bought at this price at this time, and then this announcement came shortly after that.
Here's what happens. Okay, so it's my job on the executive branch side of the building to come up with what I believe are programs, deals, policies that will work. It's council's job to then look at those and vet them and decide if they're good. We didn't get the word from UF as to where they were going. They had 3 sites, if you recall, they were looking at. We didn't get the word of where they were going until about Thanksgiving. So then their very first thing was, we need that Interline building. And so who owns the Interline building? Well, the folks that we're talking to. And so the very first thing they came to me with was, we want Riverfront Plaza. And I went, there's no way that those are going to be
and
comparable.
I would like to be the queen of Sheba.
That's what I said. And then I went to Lori over at DIA, and I said, this can't work, right? And she said, actually, they're a pretty even swap. And so she showed me the numbers, and I said, wow, if that's really true, and we really have a plan that would comply with Perkins and Will, and these people have already invested tens of millions of dollars in our community, and it's not just a rendering that we've seen 84 trillion times, but we've actually seen these people dig dirt and put up cranes. Let's go for it. And so to me, it's fortuitous, the timing. And certainly, you can say it moved fast, but I think that's a good thing. I'd like it, even if this all happens and we get this land swap in place, that's still going to take a while to build. Right?
And certainly, and the speed at which anything happens downtown, it's certainly unusual, as historically has been proven.
Yes.
So that makes sense.
So let's move.
And with this, the UF campus, with Pearl Square, because Brian Mall came on and told us all about that, which sounds amazing. There have still been some steps back. And there has been an exodus from the Wells Fargo building over the last couple of years. So how do you kind of stem the tide so it's still not a 1 step forward, 2 steps back?
Well, I think the opportunity for downtown has always come with residential. We've got to have places for young people and for business people and frankly for workforce people like police and teachers and others to live. And so I think what you're going to find is the more people that are living and finding entertainment and all that downtown, the more attractive that's going to look to companies like Citizens and others. I think that right now the argument they make is, well, but there's neighborhoods around. Well, we want downtown to be a neighborhood. So all of this synergy, I think it's really good timing, but we have to make sure that we continue to, in as much as we can, show people our work over here. We are working as fast as we can with shovels in the ground and cranes in the air to provide you with what your employees need. Please come downtown. And I'm telling you, Emily, in a few years, they're not going to be able to get the space because people are going to want to come downtown.
That would certainly be exciting. I mean, because I grew up here too, and so it's true.
So you know, right?
Feel
you know
like
what I mean.
It's always been like, no, not this time. So maybe with fingers crossed.
But you're seeing the cranes now, right? You're
Yep.
seeing the dirt being dug, and that's why we started the I Dig Jacks thing, because we want to show people, we want people to get excited about the fact that we're digging dirt here and that we're getting things done, not just downtown, but all over the city.
Yeah, and we've got so much to talk about left. We are going to talk about trash and even more interesting.
Trash.
We're going to talk trash, literally, not figuratively. So be sure to stick around. We'll be right back after the break.
From CBS 47 and Fox 30, you're watching This Week in the 904.
Welcome back to This Week in the 904. Our guest today is Mayor Donna Deegan. We're going to talk trash, not figuratively about anybody.
Okay.
We're keeping it clean. I just had too many puns that were unintentional.
Oh, I know. It's
But
good.
this is one of the debates that is currently happening between council and the executive branch with
Right.
regards to, let's start with the Meridian
Yeah,
contract.
right.
Which is still in flux. But you guys do not agree on whether Meridian should be paid more.
Well, look, at the end of the day, this came down to a twofold argument. Number one, it is the job of the executive branch to create these contracts. It is the job of the council to vet the contract and to vote on it. Both of those things happened. Meridian had a contract with an escalator that we were ready to honor. Council went back, basically tore up that contract and said, no, we're going to take millions of dollars out of our reserves, and we're going to create a new contract for these folks. So that was one piece that we were looking at. Then number two was that we asked the general counsel for a binding opinion because we felt that council should not be negotiating those contracts. They should be vetting and voting on those contracts, which they did, but that was not their lane. He gave us that binding opinion that said that was invalid. So we can't sign this agreement because we have a binding opinion saying it's invalid. So that will not happen. That agreement, we let that go. But I am very hopeful that we will come to an agreement with Meridian. We're talking, and I'm hopeful that we can come up with something that works for them and for us. They've done a great job. It's never been about their performance.
It's interesting, and the only reason, and this may be too in the weeds, but I spent my first series here was about recycling. There's two other haulers.
Yeah.
Why is Meridian the one that wants more money?
Well, I think the other haulers are making more money, and I think that's really what it came down to.
About when their contracts
Yes.
are renewed.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's really what it comes down to. So we're looking at it right now. We're taking a look at what the costs are, at all the arguments in terms of the things they brought to bear. I think the unfortunate piece of all this is that this didn't happen initially at the administration level. Mm-hmm. And so I think now we have an opportunity that we're talking and we're going through everything and trying to figure out, can we come up with a way to make this work to where you all feel like you're getting what you need and we feel like we're back where we need to move the gears.
And you talk about politics and how sometimes it gets in the way of actual stuff.
Boy, does it ever.
One of the things that has been, this has become a political issue where there's accusations that the Office of General Counsel is politicized, then the bar comes out. I mean, we've had people say that, so I want to hear your perspective on that.
Well, look, I got to tell you, what's interesting is in this city for most of the time, you've had a general counsel, a city council, and a mayor that have sort of all been in lockstep. As you recall, the first person I tried to appoint to that position was a Republican who theoretically one would think would be more in lockstep with a lot of the ways that some of those council people think. That person was rejected because, I don't know. We don't even need to get into all that anymore. The personal issues, okay, with council, I think is really what it came down to. Because what they all told me initially about her was great. Oh, she's great. But when we went to talk to Michael Fackler, I said, Michael, all I'm looking for is somebody who's going to call balls and strikes. That's what council said they wanted to. There have been many times when he has ruled against me and I've wanted to, momentarily strangle him for not going my way. But the bottom line is he's the authority. He's the law when it comes to the city. And however he views the charter is how we all have to live. And so I never stamped my feet and ran out of the room and said, okay, I'm going to take my ball and stop playing. I can't, that's not my prerogative. He makes the law. So when he disagrees with council, I think they need to live with that too. He is an honest broker who really is trying to do a good job. And whether they like that or don't like that, he shouldn't be threatened every time he makes a decision that doesn't agree with what somebody on the council wants.
Well, and I can agree that would not be a tenable position for anybody, because either way, it's kind of like reporting, somebody's going to be unhappy regardless.
Well, but when do we say we've done the best job as reporters, right? When everybody's unhappy.
Yeah. Yes, unfortunately, I know that very well.
And that has certainly been the case from time to time with Michael Fackler. There have been times we've been unhappy, and there have been times that council's been unhappy. But hopefully, all this will, move on, and we'll live to fight another day.
Well, let's talk successes. Let's talk wins. Specifically, Jack's journey.
Yeah.
And this has been a project. For folks who don't know, what is it, and why is this important to you?
Okay, Jacksonville Journey is something that started under the Payton administration that I really fell in love with, because it's an opportunity for us to be a better partner to law enforcement, right? They do the law enforcing, they do the public safety. Our job is to create a better quality of life, especially for kids, create programs and initiatives that will create a better quality of life, but also one that will tend to keep kids out of trouble. So that's why the literacy piece is such a big part of that, right? Because we know that kids that can read at a third grade level tend to not get in trouble and tend to be successful in life. And if they don't, many of those people end up in the criminal justice system. So it's programs like that. We've got our board together now, 11 wonderful people who have experience here. We had our first meeting. Everybody's very excited. And I'm really, this is one of those things, you talk about things you're not going to necessarily see tomorrow. There's a lot of seeds that I'm planting today that even after I serve a second term, will not have sprouted completely yet. And that's okay with me. I just want to make sure that the roots are in the ground and that we're continuing to grow healthy, happy young people that turn into productive adults for our local economy and for our city. And that's the whole idea behind the journey. And it's been a long time in coming. It took us a while to get it all together, but we're very excited about getting started.
And you bring up a second term. There will be an election at down the road. Some people already campaigning.
You think?
What do you anticipate that looking like for you?
Look, I have always said, and I think you followed me through the last campaign, I don't really participate in the food fights very much. I don't think people want to see it. I don't think they're interested in watching us fight. I think they just want to get their sidewalks done, and like I said, I just think people want to see us get things done. So I'll continue to do everything I can to do what I have done, and that is to collaborate with council every step of the way and see what we can do, that we can see together that we can do. And if you look at the record over the last 20 months, I think we've accomplished a lot. So what I've tried to explain to them is my successes are their successes. They don't always see it that way, but it's true. And I think what you're going to see me do is just continue to do my job. And so far, people seem to be mostly pleased with that. And so I'm just going to keep on going down that road.
Well, any parting thoughts you want folks who are listening to know or take away?
Just let me continue to hear from you. I think that's the thing with these town halls. Please, if you haven't been to a town hall, you don't have to be from Arlington to show up at our last town hall. You can just come and express your interest in what we're doing with the budget. I think that the biggest challenge in this job is not to become insulated, not to become a part of the bubble, because once you do that, you've really lost touch with what people out there want. So I would just say to people, I'm very interested in your thoughts. Please make sure you continue to talk to me, and I'll keep doing the best I can for the city I love.
Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Emily.
And thank you for joining us on this Sunday morning. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Be sure to stick around, because next week we have another special guest, Mark Lamping from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks for watching This Week in the 904.